Yo guys, it's your boy. Today we're exposing the Darwinian theory of evolution and how Looney Tunes' theory of evolution actually is. Like we can get into it and actually like figure out that evolution is one of the most like retarded theories ever. Like and it's like propagated in our science textbooks as like a fucking fact or anything. Like it's one of the most Looney Tunes fucking shit ever. And we'll just get into it.
You idiots understand science? Evolution is a fact. No matter what specific topic you're discussing regarding the creation evolution debate, whenever an article or video is posted where the comment section's open, comments like the ones I just said are sure to appear. And those are some of the nicer ones. And I can honestly see why. Growing up the way I did, with no influence from the church, the Bible, or even any deistic religious viewpoint whatsoever, the story of evolution was so firmly established in my mind as science and fact that anyone who questioned it seemed rather untethered from reality to me. I found it hard.
This is why they're pushing the evolution fact in the science textbook at a very young age, because once it's imprinted into our mind from a very young age, it becomes a part of our identity also. So people have a very hard time like thinking outside the box and thinking that evolution is like just like a evolution is just like a fairy tale actually told, and people have a hard time believing like evolution's not true because it's ingrained into their mind from a younger age.
Not to view them with intellectual contempt, as anyone denying the overwhelming proof of the story of evolution based on facts like dinosaur fossils, ape-men skulls, the 98% similarity between chimp and human DNA, the geologic column, etc., seemed idiotic, to put it bluntly. I truly remember.
One thing that's so sweet about evolution is that where are the transitionary fossils that are the fucking fish that grows legs on a fucking land and I had sex with another fish and somehow turned into a monkey and that monkey somehow turned into like a human? Like where are the transitionary fossils? This fossil gap is one of the biggest arguments against evolution. Where are these fossils, bro? Like they're just making shit out. Where are the transitionary fossils from a fucking fish to a chimpanzee or from a monkey, whatever? Like there are no transitionary fossils, bro.
Feeling just that harshly towards those I considered what would today be called science deniers. And when you feel that you have the full weight of science and an avalanche of truth in support of your beliefs, any opinion in contradiction to it seems so weak and dismissible as to be beneath serious consideration. And of course, the internet tends to encourage some bad behavior sometimes. I think of it metaphorically like a gang leader that's so sure of himself, with all of his backup behind him ready to help him out whenever he wants. But what if he spun around to find out that there was no one
Okay,
standing
bro's
there
the
to
app,
rely on?
bro. Like just
You
stop.
see, I turned around with all this cockiness and confidence I could portray and found out that many of the proofs I put my faith and trust in had disappeared without me knowing it. A hallmark of evolutionary thinking is the idea of change over time. And this notion certainly plays itself out whenever someone asks the question, what are the best proofs of evolution? Especially if we were to do so throughout history. What if we were to do that from way back in the day all the way up to the 2000s? For example, let's begin by asking that question at the time of the launch of the book that's the bedrock of modern evolutionary thought, Darwin's Origin of Species.
One thing that blow past people's minds, like
Well, in 18
Charles Darwin was a Freemason, like, and his grandfather was also a Freemason. So people think, oh, that's just coincidence. But Freemasons were like good people, like that is just coincidence, bro. And this Freemason was the one who actually brought forth the Darwinian theory of evolution. Like, this is a Freemason. Why people blow past that fact whatsoever? Like, and Darwinian theory of evolution is something that's propagated by his grandfather, not him himself.
1859, you might have been presented with Neanderthal man as proof of our evolutionary ancestry, even though they'd been found 4 years earlier and had already been declared fully human by a professional anatomist. However, the release of Darwin's book fueled the search for fossils of imagined ape-like ancestors of man in the evolution-believing community. And lo and behold, 4 years later, Irish geologist William King decided to re-examine the fossil skull of Neanderthal man and promptly decided that he was an ape-like creature. And many variations of this idea were propagated as science and fact for well over 150 years afterwards. Today, of course, evolutionists have admitted their true humanity, which is why they're designated as Homo, which means human, Neanderthals. And definitive confirmation comes from no less than Dr. Eric Trinkhaus, an evolution-believing paleoanthropologist, considered one of the world's foremost authorities on Neanderthal man, who's concluded,
Paleoanthropologist sounds like another fake science.
Detailed comparisons of Neanderthal skeletal remains with those of modern humans have shown that there's nothing in Neanderthal anatomy that conclusively indicates locomotor, manipulative, intellectual, or linguistic abilities inferior to those of modern humans. Now, obviously, humans evolving into humans isn't exactly proof of evolution. So you can scratch.
Yeah, microevolution is 100% real, but macroevolution from a fucking different species evolution, that's fucking fake as fuck and false. Like human beings can adapt to sort of kinds of things like humans can adapt to have like longer fingertips and something like that over a long period of time, and there are my macroevolution microevolution is 100% real, but macroevolution, bro, like there's not a single piece of conclusive evidence to conclude that macroevolution exists.
Them off the list, as Neanderthals certainly aren't proof positive of evolution anymore. However, moving on to 1861, you may have finally found yourself presented with some rock-solid proof in the form of a missing link between dinosaurs and birds, called Archaeopteryx. Good old Archae was used for decades to convince people that a true transitional fossil between lizards and birds had been found. But alas, in 1977, an admitted true bird was found which dates, according to evolutionist methods, at 60 million years older than Archaeopteryx, which means Archae couldn't be the transition to birds from lizards if birds already existed.
First of all, I don't even believe that the Earth is like 4.5 billion fucking years old, because like things like the great unconformity, like certain like in their own paradigm, certain like geological rocks are like 1 billion years worth of geological rocks are missing. Like that's in their own paradigm. Like, and this greatly exposes their own paradigm, like the great conformity. Like that just shows that they're making shit up. Like they're making like it's 4.5 billion years ago. But a lot of like 1 billion years of geological records are missing. Like it's just.
Professor John Ostrom of Yale acknowledged, "We must now look for the ancestors of flying birds in a period of time much older than that in which Archaeopteryx lived." Indeed, far from being some unique dino bird, Archae shared much of its supposed unique anatomical structures with true birds that exist today, like the South American hoatzin, for example. So much for Archaeopteryx as undeniable proof of evolution. Now, by 1868, maybe the most cutting-edge proof presented to you might have been the supposed shocking similarity of animal and human embryos.
Oh, bro, this shit has been debunked like thousands of times.
And the discovery that humans recapitulated or relived their evolutionary ancestry while developing in the womb. Of course, modern science has shown that the idea that you start off like a worm, then become more like a fish, then become an ape-like creature, and finally a human while growing in your mom is absolutely ridiculous and would be laughed at by any educated person today. And Haeckel's embryo drawings have now been admitted to being completely fraudulent, forgeries made by this supposed great scientist's own hand, and the similarity argument has been shown false as well. And yet they were in textbooks up until my youngest daughter was in school just 15 years ago here
Yep. Bunch of fucking frauds, bro, trying to propagate some fake shit.
in Canada. As evolution-believing embryologist Michael Richardson concluded, "This is one of the worst cases of scientific fraud. It's shocking to find that somebody once thought was a great scientist was deliberately misleading. It makes me angry. What he, Haeckel, did was to
It makes me wonder like how many like scientists were actually like paid or like paid by the ruling elites to promote the satanic agenda, or like to make the masses believe the God doesn't exist. Like how many of the scientists are paid for like monetary or influence or power, like, and it's just like sad, disingenuity in the scientific community.
take a human embryo and copy it. These are fakes." So obviously, these embryo arguments are no longer proof of evolution either. Now, by 1879, you may have felt scientists finally had the proof of evolution, as the American Journal of Science published an impressive diagram showing the supposed evolutionary development of horses, which found its way into many other publications and textbooks for years. Now, today, this proof of evolution has been abandoned because of the many severe challenges brought against it. For example, if the series were true, you'd expect to find the earliest fossils in the lowest rock strata. But you don't. In fact, bones of the supposed earliest horses have been found at or near the surface. Sometimes they're found right next to modern horse fossils. But instead of me listing all of the challenges here, I'll quote the evolutionist curator at the American Museum of Natural History, Dr. Niles Eldridge. I admit that an awful lot of that has gotten into the textbooks as though it were true. For instance, the most famous example still on exhibit downstairs in the American Museum is the exhibit on horse evolution prepared perhaps 50 years ago. That has been presented as literal truth in textbook after textbook. Now I think that's lamentable, particularly because the people who propose these kinds of stories themselves may be aware of the speculative nature of some of the stuff. So obviously the horse evolution series isn't irrefutable proof of evolution either.
Bunch of lies after lies, like
Well, maybe by 1893 they'd show you the good stuff, the so-called scientific evidence of vestigial organs inside of us. These were supposed evidence of useless leftover parts inside us from our supposed evolutionary past. And by this time, evolution-believing scientists like German anatomist Robert Widersham was claiming that our bodies contained over 86 of these useless organs, including the thymus, tonsils, adenoids, valves and veins, the parathyroid,
useless organs, bro. What is bro?
and the pineal and pituitary glands. Of course, not only have all now been shown to be functional, but some have been shown to be critical for life itself. Today's doctors would consider that old list laughable.
This is why people say, "Oh, science is king. Scientism is like the god." Atheists think scientism is their god, but science always changes, like into like contradictory opinions. Like 50 years after, science is always changing. So people, science actually says that you can man can actually become a woman. Like, so which science should we consider as authority? Like, scientism always changes their opinions based on the current cultural and political climate. Also, like science sounds that you can actually take fucking hormones to actually become a woman. That's what science propagates today. Like, there are many doctors who ascribe to that fact. Also, like, that's why like you should never make scientism an empirical observation or data your god, because those things can be manipulated, distorted, or like changed based on promoting a narrative or a political agenda by the elites or the government whatsoever.
And over the years, the list of so-called vestigial organs has shrunk to a handful of highly questionable examples, even within the evolutionary community itself. Even the most commonly touted of all, the appendix, is now recognized as a highly specialized organ with a rich blood supply that manufactures several types of antibodies. It's not some useless relic. And it's not just the fact that these vestigial organ claims kept getting knocked off the list, it's the fact that the whole concept itself is a terrible proof of evolution to begin with. Ultimately, evolution is about how supposedly new structures, forms, functions, and features came to exist, not about the degeneration of existing structures over time. Something that used to have a function but no longer does is no direct help to the story of evolution. So these once great proofs of evolution have ended up in the dustbin as well. Now, by 1912, you'd finally have been shown some truly dynamic fossil evidence found in a gravel pit near Piltdown in England. The skull of an ancient ape man dubbed Piltdown Man was presented as overwhelming proof of our evolutionary ancestry. And for 40 years, this supposed proof was displayed in museum exhibits and textbooks as proof positive that human beings had descended from ape-like ancestors, with hand-drawn scientific images of what the creature must have looked like. But once again, 4 decades later, the evidence was re-examined and revealed as a fraud. It wasn't even a good fraud, as you could easily see how the teeth from a jawbone had been filed down to make them look more human, and the bones had been chemically treated to make them look very old. It was simply a combination of an old human skull and a modern ape jawbone stuck together. So much for that proof of evolution. But wait, by 1917, just 5 years later in the US, they found some powerful evidence for evolution when a Nebraskan rancher found what he thought was a special kind of tooth on his farm. And an evolution-believing paleontologist friend of his was excited at the prospect it must have come from an ape man. And after an artist applied a healthy helping of evolutionary imagination to his picture,
Any proof of evolution, if you just critically analyze it and like look into it, you can easily be debunked. Like everything, like because it's not truth, it's falsehood.
he produced a portrait of Nebraska Man, a hairy ape man, along with his ape woman wife in a scientific journal. And this was touted as great scientific proof for evolution. However, several years later, scientists confirmed that the tooth had come from a pig. The whole fiasco had nothing
Bro, these guys are fucking crazy, bro. The scientific disingenuity, making false fucking assertions,
to do with apes or people. It had everything to do with
and treating these assertions as like conclusive evidence. Bro, these guys should be put behind bars for making like teaching wrong information to children, and these things are actually in the textbooks. Like you can find these things in the current textbooks, and these people should be put behind bars who are in charge of curating this information and who is in charge of disseminating this information.
Evolutionary presuppositions that drove false conclusions, all based on laughably flimsy evidence. So you can toss that proof of evolution away as well.
Also want to show Eric Dubay's video, like
concepts that have been used to uphold and validate the theory of evolution. I'm confident that these findings and key historical events, which have been instrumental in shaping my own perspective, will similarly assist others in questioning and ultimately rejecting this theory entirely. By discarding this obstructive theory, we can eliminate barriers that hinder our pursuit of truth, freeing ourselves from the constraints it imposes. This liberation allows us to transcend the notion that the world's diverse array of complex life forms are merely the result of time and chance. This prevailing
one thing, like evolution itself violates the second law of thermodynamics. Like, how can like a simple system generate a much more complex system, like without an external mover or anything, like without an external force? Like nature doesn't make a simple system into much more like complex system. It like effectively is a violation of second law of thermodynamics. Like, it's so crazy.
scientific theory represents a significant obstacle, impeding our ability to move beyond the limitations of an inherently flawed naturalistic philosophy. It limits our comprehensive understanding and hinders us from embracing the profound realization that a creative force beyond comprehension has shaped the world we inhabit and is the sole author of all our experiences. To begin, I will present some of my favorite quotes that I've accumulated over the years, reflecting my own examination, consideration, and eventual rejection of this theory. Ironically, let's begin with none other than Charles Darwin himself, the renowned pioneer of the theory of evolution, who introduced his ideas in 1859 through his seminal work on the origin of species.
Charles Darwin may believe like humans came from monkeys because, bro, he even looks like a fucking monkey. He looks like a fucking ape, bro. Like only his family came from monkeys. Like, he, this dude looks like a fucking creature, bro. Like, this dude can only this dude's lineage comes from monkeys, bro. Everyone else is fucking set. Also, the other thing about irreducible complexity, like if you like any minute, intricate like a nerve inside of the eye is actually damaged, like the whole eye loses functioning. Like this does not occur due to like naturalistic mutation and selection. Like this does not occur and this is not due to evolution. It's due to intricate design, and it's due to like intentional design by a higher power above us with a higher consciousness actually design us. Like even if our own fingerprint, every human being has a unique fingerprint. This is not due to natural selection or like mutation or evolution. Like this, there are so like thousands of fucking nerves inside the eye. If a single one is actually damaged, the whole eye loses functioning, and we can infer from that like that's not actually due to like evolution, and we that's not because our eye adapted to the fucking surroundings and shit. Like, come on, that's the fakest fucking shit ever.
Eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection, seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. Louis Bonheur said, "Evolution is a fairy tale for grown-ups. This theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is useless." Malcolm Muggeridge said,
More like this theory is not. It's like a cover up. Like it's like a fake explanation, like a fake explanation to cover up about the fact that trying to like propagate that or destroy the evidence of God itself, destroy anything that's spiritual indeed. So they're trying to create a fake cover up story. Like that doesn't even like correctly fit in that inside the whole naturalistic narrative itself. Like they're in their own paradigm. The story of evolution even doesn't fit. Like so they're trying every method itself to deny divinity, like divinity of God itself. Like and there's a higher power above us, and we are created by a higher intelligence. They're trying so hard to deny that.
"I myself am convinced that the theory of evolution, especially the extent to which it's been applied, will be one of the great jokes in the history books of the future. Posterity will marvel that so very flimsy and dubious a hypothesis could be accepted with the incredible credulity that it has." Dr. Colin Patterson said, "No one has ever produced a species by mechanisms of natural selection. No one has ever gotten near it, and most of the current argument in neo-Darwinism is about this question."
Yeah, like how does like mutations and natural selection only cause changes in the current genetic structure? It does not create a new genetic structure. Like it does not create like a new species does not occur from like mutation or natural selection or whatever the fuck they actually want to call it. How does a different genetic code actually come up? Like, that doesn't exist.
Adnan Akhtar said, "The complexity and intricacy of living organisms cannot be explained solely by chance and natural processes. There must be a higher intelligence behind their creation." The theory of evolution, formulated by Charles Darwin,
I told you, this dude actually looks like a monkey, so that he made up this stupid ass doctrine, to destroy any form of like religion or God itself. The idea of religion or idea of God itself.
posits that all species of organisms have descended from a common ancestor through gradual changes over long periods of time, encapsulated in 4 primary concepts. 1. Descent with modification. Species change over time, and new species arise from pre-existing ones through a process called descent with modification. 2. Natural selection. The driving force behind evolution is natural selection. Individuals with advantageous traits are more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass on these traits to future generations. 3. Common ancestry. All living organisms share a common ancestry, and the diversity of life on Earth is a result of branching and diversification over millions of years. 4. Gradualism. Evolution occurs gradually through the accumulation of small changes over long periods of time, leading to the formation of new species. The theory of evolution posits that the diversity and complexity of life can be explained by natural processes without the need for supernatural intervention. However, considerable doubt persists regarding the fundamental concept that one species can gradually transform into a completely different species over time. Skepticism is further fueled by historical examples that often rely on highly speculative interpretations, requiring a significant degree of faith to even be considered plausible. Instead of categorizing certain discoveries as entirely new species, or simply small variations within existing species, they are often labeled as transitional forms. This labeling is a common practice among evolutionists attempting to establish intermediate connections in the evolutionary chain. This entirely speculative process forms the foundation of the theory, suggesting, for example, how an aquatic species might undergo a gradual series of transitions over an extended period through successive generations, ultimately becoming a land-dwelling animal. This involves a gradual process in which an organism undergoes a reduction or loss of distinct aquatic features, which become less advantageous in water, while simultaneously developing entirely new features that are specifically adapted for survival in a non-aquatic land.
Yeah, the story of a fish that actually grew limbs and walked on land, bro. This theory is like stupid as like anyone who believes in this theory is brain dead or retarded.
Environment. However, it is essential to recognize the inherent complexities associated with embracing this theory. The theory requires acceptance of countless leaps of faith, undergoing transitions from one form to another.
Yep, there's not a single record of transitionary fossils from a fish that grew its legs to become a monkey and the monkey became a man. Where are the transitionary fossils? It doesn't exist. Like, it's so easy to refute these kinds of lies, but these lies are actually so prevalent in our textbooks. Like, it's so crazy, it's still purported to this day.
Without providing any demonstrated biological or chemical mechanisms to explain the feasibility of such transitions. We are simply asked to play along, out of blind trust, to keep this naturalistic theory cohesive. Charles Darwin himself acknowledged the crucial importance of finding evidence of transitional forms in nature, commonly referred to as the fossil record. He conceded that without such evidence, his theory would be deemed inadequate. Despite ongoing research, there remains a significant deficiency in the fossil record, a deficiency that has consistently posed a critical obstacle to supporting this theory since its inception. When purported missing links are discovered, they have been marred by numerous instances of fraud and forgery. These historical falsifications have damaged the credibility of evolutionary theory, revealing the lengths to which some evolutionists are willing to go to support naturalistic views. While the concept of a sequential series of transitional forms may seem logical and compelling when
We all remember the Lucy, like, this fraud has been exposed. Every single so-called evidence they put forward has been debunked.
depicted through imagery such as the well-known monkey-to-man illustration, it is crucial to acknowledge the intricate complexities and the significant challenges in plausibility connecting these transitions. This recognition points to the considerable degree of faith necessary for the theory of evolution to be firmly accepted. Throughout history, numerous instances of confirmed fraud and creative reconstructions have been aimed at attempting to identify missing links in the story of
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole. Like, dinosaurs ain't fucking like, it's a fucking hoax, bro. Like, straight up.
human origins. However, all attempts have ultimately failed. As we move ahead, constructing a compelling case against the theory of evolution requires us to highlight the extensive range of speculations that endeavor to support it, as well as a history replete with fraud and deception. Upon examining these cases, it becomes apparent that they stretch the limits of credibility, bordering on the impossible, and thus make it exceptionally challenging to seriously consider the validity of such claims and the overall theory. This discussion underscores the importance of conducting a comprehensive evaluation of proposed evidence, rather than simply accepting it as scientifically valid and worthy of consideration. It highlights the necessity of looking beyond persuasive illustrations and depictions that might lead us to believe we have seen conclusive proof. We should be encouraged to further examine the complete narrative before drawing firm conclusions and claiming to have thoroughly examined the evidence. Turning our attention to historical instances, there have been numerous cases where scientists and proponents of the theory of evolution have used cleverly crafted fakes, forgeries, and highly speculative assumptions in their efforts to support this naturalistic theory. These incidents underscore the need for
You think man came from this? This looks like a nigga from Africa, bro. Like, bruh, you think man actually came from this, bro? Come on, bro.
vigilance and thorough scrutiny in scientific research, cautioning against acceptance based solely on blind trust. Proposed by German biologist Ernest Haeckel, the recapitulation theory suggested that the development of an individual organism, ontogeny, recapitulates the evolutionary history
Yep, this is proven false.
of its species, phylogeny. According to this theory, the stages of embryonic development in an organism mirror the evolutionary stages that its ancestors underwent. Modern embryology and evolutionary biology have revealed that the relationship between autogeny and phylogeny is far more complex than Haeckel proposed. Haeckel's recapitulation theory has been widely discredited and is no longer considered accurate by any of the scientific community worldwide. Ernest Haeckel's scientific work, particularly his illustrations of embryos he presented to support his recapitulation theory, faced intense criticism from his peers. Accused of manipulating and exaggerating his drawings to strengthen his recapitulation theory, Haeckel was found guilty of scientific misconduct during a trial.
Bruh. Bruh, these people should be probably have bars for promoting stupid shit like this. Like, any kinds of scientific fraud should be, like, legally punished. Like, that's what I believe. Because it actually changes the perception of the children and the youth, like, itself. Like, these kinds of things should actually be punished. Bruh.
By his peers. The verdict confirmed that his illustrations did not reflect the actual appearance of embryos. This controversy undermined Haeckel's credibility and led to a loss of support for his recapitulation theory within the scientific community. After his trial, Haeckel was quoted saying, "After this compromising confession of forgery, I should be obliged to consider myself condemned and annihilated if I had not the consolation of seeing, side by side with me in the prisoner's dock, hundreds of fellow culprits, among them many of the most trusted observers and most esteemed biologists. The great majority of all the diagrams in the best biological textbooks, treatises, and journals would incur in the same degree the charge of forgery, for all of them are inexact and are more or less doctored, schematized, and constructed."
Anybody else who put this shit in the textbooks should also be put behind bars.
The first recognized Neanderthal remains were discovered in the Neander Valley near Dusseldorf, Germany, in 1856. Quarry workers stumbled upon a skull cap, several limb bones, and some other fragments. Interestingly enough, these discoveries were made during a period that coincided with the release of Charles Darwin's work on the origin of species.
It also, like, makes us believe that they put, like, random fucking, like, fairy tale fucking shit. They put a random human bone and said this is, like, an early man. And put it in a fucking museum, and people actually believe that shit. Like, they put anything in a museum, and you guys would actually believe it. Like, if they put like a human fucking feces and say this is the first poop of a dinosaur, then you guys would actually believe it. Like, it's so, like, use critical thinking to actually find what's fake and what's not.
Neanderthals are claimed to be a close relative of modern humans. To this day, reconstructed drawings of this Neanderthal man are depicted in scholarly journals and textbooks and claimed to be a missing evolutionary link. The fact is, however, that all so-called Neanderthal remains have never been shown to be any more different from modern humans than an Asian from a Caucasian, or an Inuit from an Aborigine. As well, the skull size shows its brain was 13% larger than the average brain of modern man, making it impossible to be an intermediary between modern man and ape. Even Time magazine in 1971 claimed the primitiveness of Neanderthal man to be unwarranted, that he could walk the street unrecognized. One writer even commenting that historians of the future may declare all of us insane for
Bruh, this looks like a regular dude that actually see up on the street. Like, this looks like an old dude that you actually see up on the streets. And another picture, another picture that's showing up like in like a early Neanderthal. That looks like a dude from Africa. Like, it's not something like a fucking like early fucking man, bro. Like these kinds of people still exist today. And one second, like, why does fucking like chimpanzees and all these fucking creatures do not evolve into humans? Like, why do we see them here now? Like why do they stop evolving? Like, why do you see chimpanzees and all those monkeys right now? Like, why don't they evolve? Like, it's been like thousands and thousands of years. Like, and they're stuck at being chimpanzees. That doesn't make any sense.
For not detecting and refuting this incredible blunder with adequate determination. One of the main proponents pushing Neanderthal man as an authentic species was Rainer Prosch, a German anthropologist and former professor who gained attention for his involvement in a scientific fraud related to Neanderthal remains. Prosch claimed to have discovered and analyzed several important Neanderthal fossils, including the famous Heidelberg man. However, it was later revealed that Prosch had manipulated the dating of these fossils and provided inaccurate information about their age. Investigations into Prosch's work uncovered numerous irregularities and inconsistencies. It was found that Prosch had engaged in fraudulent practices, such as misrepresenting the origin and age of the fossils. As a result, his scientific reputation was severely damaged, and his work came under intense scrutiny. In the early 20th century, fossil specimens were discovered on the Indonesian island of Java by Dutch physician and paleontologist Eugene Dubois. It is worth noting that Dubois had previously studied as an apprentice under Ernest Haeckel, the evolutionist involved in the elaborate hoaxes previously outlined. Dubois claimed to have found significant remains at the Trinil site along the Solo River, including a skullcap, a leg bone, a jaw fragment, and 3 teeth. Initially, he named the fossil Pithecanthropus erectus, suggesting it represented an intermediary form between apes and humans, from which he constructed the ape-like Java man. Within 10 years of its discovery, Java man was the main subject of over 80 evolution books and articles, and was eventually named Homo erectus. Hank Hanegraaff, author and talk show host, wrote, "Interestingly, some of the teeth were old and some young. The bones belonged to ape, female and male. It was an interesting conglomeration, and the reason that people didn't catch on to it is because the find of Dubois was kept from scholars for about 30 years. He also withheld the discovery of modern human remains, which were found in the same stratum as Java man. Of course, that would have ruined his claims that Java man was the ancestor of modern-day humans. Finally, enough pressure was placed on him that the actual bones were allowed to be examined, and the discrepancies were found, and eventually, enlightened America, as well as the world, found out that this was a hoax. Java man's teeth...
Yep, every attempt at evolution is fucking hoax. Like anybody who believes this evolution shit is brain dead retarded at this point. We see hoax after hoax after hoax, debunking after debunking, and you still choose to believe in this? Come on, bro.
Were discovered to be of varying ages, and the bones were a combination of human and ape remains, including a large gibbon's skull. Rudolf Virchow, who was Ernest Haeckel's own professor and the leading pathology expert of his era, made the following statement. "In my opinion, this creature was an animal, a giant gibbon in fact, and the thigh bone has not the slightest connection with the skull." Many experts, including himself, reached the conclusion that the thigh bone is undoubtedly human, whereas the skullcap and teeth are attributed to a primate. The story of Piltdown Man revolves around a notorious archaeological hoax that occurred in the early 20th century. The discovery took place in 1912 in Piltdown, England, when Charles Dawson, an amateur archaeologist, claimed to have found remains of an ancient hominid. The findings were presented as a missing link between apes and humans, garnering significant attention from the scientific community. The supposed Piltdown Man fossils included a human-like skull with an ape-like jaw, along with various other bone fragments and teeth. The discovery initially received widespread acceptance and was seen as a breakthrough in understanding human evolution at the time. However, suspicions about the authenticity of Piltdown Man arose in the following decades. In 1953, the Piltdown Man specimens were revealed to be an elaborate forgery. In 1953, the fossils were conclusively identified as a composite of ancient human skull fragments, an orangutan jaw, and chimpanzee teeth, molars and premolars, that were filed down to make them appear more human-like. As well, the bones were chemically treated and stained to match an aged appearance. It became clear that the deception was meticulously planned and executed. The Piltdown Man hoax had a significant impact on the field of paleoanthropology. The identity of the hoaxer remains uncertain, with Charles Dawson being the primary suspect, although others may have been involved. In 1922, a single tooth was discovered in Nebraska's Snake Creek Formation. Some scientists, including Henry Fairfield Osborn, an American paleontologist, and the president of the American Museum of Natural History from 1908 to 1933, speculated that it belonged to an early human ancestor.
Bro, who is even coming up with this idea, stupid ass ideas to actually At least do a good job at if you're gonna fake that shit. Like a fucking tooth, come on, bro.
Osborne even provided an artistic reconstruction of what Nebraska Man and his wife and child might have looked like, based on a single tooth, highlighting again what was mentioned prior about extensive range of speculations. However, further excavations and research revealed that the tooth actually belonged to an extinct pig-like mammal, rather than a human ancestor. The misidentification of the tooth as evidence for human evolution underscores yet another instance of premature and rather extreme speculation based on limited evidence. This highlights the pervasive nature of such attempts throughout history to establish supposed missing links in the human evolutionary chain. Lucy was discovered in 1974 in the Afar region of Ethiopia by paleoanthropologist Donald Johansen.
Yep, this is the biggest talking point of fucking atheists. Like Lucy is the biggest talk, and a fucking movie was made. If a mainstream movie was actually made about like anything related to fucking evolution or like naturalistic explanation, you know it's fucking fake. Like when they try and purport something, they always make a movie about that. Like that's always how it goes.
And his team. The discovery represented a relatively complete skeleton of an alleged early human ancestor claimed to have lived approximately 3.2 million years ago. Lucy belonged to the species Australopithecus afarensis, which displayed a combination of ape-like and human-like characteristics and was claimed to walk upright. There have been numerous controversies and debates surrounding Lucy's classification and significance. For example, there were claims that Johansen did not allow other scientists to examine Lucy's bones until 1982, 8 years after the discovery. Some argue that as more Australopithecus skeletons have been found and examined, many leading evolutionists now consider Lucy to be simply an extinct type of ape, similar to modern pygmy chimpanzees, rather than a direct human ancestor. In May 1999, the French Science AV magazine ran a cover story titled "Goodbye, Lucy." The article discussed how Lucy, once considered the most famous fossil of Australopithecus, was no longer seen as the root of the human race, and, quote, needs to be removed from the supposed human family tree. In 1982, a fragment of a skull known as Orse Man was discovered in the Spanish town of Orse. Initially believed to be from a human ancestor dating back approximately 1.8 million years, the skull fragment later failed to substantiate its highly speculative claims of such antiquity. Subsequent studies and re-evaluation of the fossil indicated that it is more likely to have belonged to an ancient donkey rather than a human ancestor. The precise identification of the fragment remains a subject of ongoing scientific debate and investigation. The Orse skull discovery, once thought to be a significant finding related to early humans, is now considered more likely to be associated with other extinct animals or potentially an artifact of geological processes. The theory of evolution as an explanation for macroevolution, wherein one species can transition into a distinctly new species, has never been directly observed. Instead, the observable evidence supports microevolution, which refers to small changes within a species based on subtle variations, such as gradual adaptations in beak sizes among birds.
And macroevolution, it's not even scientifically provable. Like,
it is important to recognize that microevolution operates within a very limited framework and remains the extent of what has been scientifically confirmed to date. Throughout history, evolutionists have made persistent efforts, many times fraudulent as we have seen, to attempt to bridge highly implausible gaps within the theory of evolution. These attempts aim to establish it as a valid and scientifically supported explanation for the gradual evolution of simple, single-celled organisms into the diverse and complex array of life forms we observe all around us today. Perhaps there is no greater illustration of the profound complexities involved than the process of a single sperm cell merging with an egg, setting in motion the remarkable journey that leads to the creation of an entire human being. Attempting to reverse engineer such complex mechanisms highlights the vast chasms of understanding that must still be traversed to scientifically support evolutionary concepts. Consider the multitude of wonders that ensue. The intricate complexities of eyes that perceive the world, ears that capture the symphony of sound, an olfactory system that distinguishes the subtlest of scents, a robust skeletal framework that provides structure, a circulatory system that coordinates the flow of vital substances, along with a meticulously interconnected nervous system culminating in a fully conscious brain at the center. The complexity of it all seems boundless, leaving us in awe of the wondrous enigma that life presents and how it could possibly come into.
yo, that'll be our debate. So, evolution is a fucking big scam. Like, it just has become scam. Like, it's also, and there's like a deeper, like, I don't want to get too conspiratorial, like a deeper, like, meaning to evolution. They're trying to, like, say that human rationality, it's not something God given. Human consciousness and mind is not God given. It's actually like our consciousness is equal to that of an animal consciousness, and we're no different from an animal. That is just like a satanic agenda they're actually trying to promote. Like we're just animals, like, but somehow we have a higher consciousness, like, and they're trying to promote like human beings into this animalistic reasoning. Like we're just animals who like go based on instinct, sex and appetite. That's fucking it. Like there's no inherent meaning or purpose to divine life itself. Like there's no teleology in the universe itself. Like they're trying to promote this so hard, and and that's why this is like a deeper meaning. It's they're not just that they're trying to hide God, because they're also trying to like lower our consciousness into animalistic nature. So there's no meaning. Everybody do what thou will. Like everybody can go like do the animalistic shit, and like our brain should be like a animalistic type brain, and whatever the animals are doing, like we can also do that. We can actually kill, grape anyone. You can actually do fucking anything. Like that's just an agenda that they're actually trying to promote. Like that's what I'm talking about. There's like a deeper meaning to the evolution where they are trying to promote. So that's about it. Like evolution's fake. Don't get caught in the stupid shit. Like bruh, wake up, bruh. Like that's about it.